All right, so I want to start with where we went. 2 questions, really. I'm going to give you a quick overview, and then I'm going to get the team up to share some questions, and maybe we'll have some Q&A. We'll just see where it goes. But I just want to give you a really quick context. 2 questions of where we went and what we did. So where we went, obviously Moldova, but we landed in, well, do you want to put me back in my slides? Okay, we obviously went to Moldova, but we landed in the capital, Chisinau, and this was the kind of headquarters of OM Moldova. So we've done this trip partnering with Operation Mobilization. They're over 130 countries, and actually the team in Moldova is over 60 staff. It's a really big team, and I just have to say, I know they'll never hear this, but what a class act. What a class act. They were absolute professionals, absolutely amazing men and women of God. And so this is where we started. We landed off the plane. Well, my family and I, as most of you will know, we were already on annual leave. And so we got to Moldova a day or so before the team. But we landed, and this is kind of what we saw. 35-degree heat. And this is the front of that place. They were paving. And I just tell you, again, straight off a 29-hour flight, Ernie, Mick, straight on the tools, right? Straight on the tools. They're expecting that they'll go have a nap. Nah, not Australians. Not Stace. I mean, if it had been me, I probably would have. But these guys, straight on the tools, starting to lay bricks in the hot heat. So that's where we landed in Chisinau. And, hey, just wait,
every
mate.
day. 3 times a day.
I just want to give you an idea. I don't know if you can hear it. 3 times a day. I'll just narrate for you. 3 times a day we had to do this, right? That was the dining room. Now let's watch how many stairs we had to walk up. 3 times a day to get to our bedroom, because this place was 5 stories high. True, that was 3 times if, you were me, not if you were Stacey. It was probably 13 times. And they just keep going. I'm just letting you know. And, you can't really hear it, but I tell you, by the time I get to the top, you will also hear me go, Well, it did help the weight management issue of eating lots of food. 6 flights of stairs. I'll cut to the chase. 6 flights of stairs. 3 times a day to get from the dining room to the bedroom where we stayed. So it was a really big house / hotel converted into OM's kind of headquarters. And this is the team that we went with. So I'm going to start on the far left, that guy with the baby face. His name was Slavik. Everyone say Slavik. He was an interesting dude, right? He had a talk about a PD that was not typical, right? He was driver, accountant, and hobby preacher. So he translated for me when we went to a Russian church. Next, we have at the very back, next to Ernie, was Igor. He was the team leader of Moldova. Next to him was a girl by the name of Yema, or Emanuela, and she was the translator. And then there was a 4th guy who's not in that picture because he was usually asleep most of the day. And that is this guy, Pavel, who was a young bloke next to Zach in that picture. And he kind of headed over the actual kids program ministry and stuff. So we landed in Chisinau. We did a little bit of work, did a bit of planning, and then basically got ready to go to the villages where we were going to do most of our ministry. And can I just say that the city and the team didn't really experience this because they landed and were put to work kind of thing. But Bianca and I and the kids, we explored Chisinau a little bit before kicking off because we got there early. And initially we were just like, this is kind of like Melbourne. Like, there were good cafes. It was a pretty bustling city. Yes, it was, broken down and a bit shabby in places. But we were like, this, I don't really get the whole poorest country in Europe thing, right? That we'd been told. And then we went to the villages. And the stuff in the villages, the stuff in the country, hello, mate. Dad's little helper. was very different. It was very different in the villages. This is where we stayed, which was the pastor's house. He and his 4 kids vacated, so we could all stay there. I didn't do a zoomed in picture just because I don't want to deter anyone from coming next year. Let's just say it wasn't, the Ritz-Carlton. It was a struggling home, post-Soviet. But it was a blessing and a huge honor that they would move out for us to stay there as a team, so we didn't have to be separated and billeted to different families. And we quickly realized that in the villages, things were different, right? We started seeing all these wells, and after thinking, aren't they cute, we realized actually this is how people get water. Like, you don't turn a tap on, you go to a well. Like, that kind of boggled my brain. And seeing these old babushkas, getting water up every day to drink, to shower with, it really hit us that we really were somewhere different. And the differences just kept coming. There was a different form of transport that you don't see often in Australia. There was a different form of farming. There was even a different form of working out. And if you can't see, they are car tires with some bricks in them. And a very shonky bench that when I went to get up from almost killed me. So it was very different in the villages, about 2.5 hours. We were based in a village called Chinusha that had about 600 inhabitants spread out. And we went and really worked with 2 different churches. So this is the first one in Chinusha. And another picture. So the building on the left is the church. The building on the right was kind of like a mess hall. They had some accommodation for people upstairs, and basically just kitchen and stuff downstairs. They actually had a running toilet. They had upgraded from the drop toilet, so praise Jesus. That was ready in time for us. And this was the pastor in the blue shirt, smack bang in the middle, Valera, and his wife Sveta, and then they had 4 kids. One of them's disappeared. I'm not sure where he is. And if you notice, you'll notice that Mick's not in that photo either, because Mick also disappeared quite often. But he wasn't the only one, Stace. She managed to disappear a couple of crucial times too, like at airports. It was very interesting, I thought that, leading a team of 5 adults would be easy, but can I say it's much harder than leading 3 children? They do all sorts of things. But anyway, so that's the Pastor Valera at the church in Chinusha. And then this is the church in Nikolaevka, which is like a little Russian village, probably 25 minutes from Chinusha, quite a bit smaller. Half of those people are our team. And so, we ministered in there as well. So that were the 2 churches that we spent the bulk of our time with. So that's where we went. And what did we do? Well, we did a range of things. Most of the time we did kids programs. So it's summer over there, and the kids over there get like 3 months holidays. And so for both churches representing multiple villages, we put on a kids program for 2 days that went for 4 hours. Just let that sink in. You think it's hard running jam sometimes, some of you jam volunteers. 4 hours. Whew. And we did that. We did the same program for 2 different places, and each went for 2 days. And as part of that program, we did lots of running in the 35-degree heat, lots of games, lots of kids. There was about 100 kids at the first place. And, kids would walk literally hours to get there, like hours. Some of you teenagers barely don't want to walk to the fridge. These kids would walk 2+ hours to come to church or youth group or whatever. So that was quite a blessing. We did things like sing songs. We taught them Jesus. Was it Jesus Loves You? Jesus Loves the Little Children. I should know because I did it. We did things like Bible verses and memory verses. Even the kids got involved. What else did we do? We did some face painting, and I show you this one. I don't know if you can see very well. That is an epic unicorn done by yours truly, Stacy. Now the next photo is very important because this is a photo of me and Ernie. You can kind of see us in there doing face painting. Can I tell you, we did not get an invitation to do face painting ever again. In fact, true story, couple of the kids, having presented themselves to their friends with whatever we'd put on their face, asked in broken English, could they please have it wiped off? So me and Ernie found that our gifting was not face painting, although we were all right with a spider, one black dot and a couple of little lines. But yes, that's a precious photo because never again will we appeared in face painting. So we did face painting, we did games, we did craft, we did, as part of the program, we did some dramas. It's hard not to do great dramas with dramatic people like Stacy, dancing and all sorts of things. And then obviously lots of kids would pray and come to know Jesus as well, so that was pretty cool. So that was the kids program that typically we would start. I'll just give you a run through of the day. So the day kind of looked like it's 6:30. Our little team from Australia would do a devotion together till about 7. Then at 8 we'd have breakfast. Then at 8:30 we'd do a bigger devotion with the OM team as well. Then at 9 we'd get in the car, start packing up, ready to go to the villages to run these kids programs. And then we do that from about 10 till 2. And then after the program, we'd come and have lunch. And, you know, everything in Moldova is community. And so we did it all together. Any village kids wandering past, free lunch, yes, thanks. So we were in there. And that, can I just tell you, was literally a sauna. I mean, it was 35 degrees outside. Put 20-odd bodies in a small room with no ventilation. I tell you, we lost about 1 kilogram every time we had lunch. It was like free food we were eating because we were losing it through sweat. It was interesting. So we would do that, and then after lunch, we would then have very, very important meetings where we had to be focused. Not all of us were focused, Ernie. Some of us would fall asleep in those very important meetings where we planned the next day's activities, etc. And then after that, we would then typically do home visits where we'd go to struggling families with care packages, and we would witness to them. We would have conversation with them. This lady was a paraplegic, was in an accident, and I mean, there's no health care over there. Like, you know, you're lucky if you get through the winter with enough wood or coal. You know, one of the translators told us the stories, why all over the place, like the fences were broken down. And because basically in winter, when they run out of coal, they start destroying their own fence to keep warm. And so things like trying to get, operations for things like this are just non-existent. And so, so we would do home visits. This is the pastor with the yellow hat, was the pastor at the church in Nikolaevka. And that church was actually planted by the pastor in Chinusha, Valera. And so this is another team doing a home visit. And then another team, the kiddies would also get little toys and stuff in those care packages. And really confronting and a blessing of a time too. So that's kind of what it looked like when we were doing our kids program. We kind of did kids programs and then home visits. And then other things that we did outside of the trip, we did sharing of testimonies. Every one of the people that went, minus me, because I got stuck preaching, shared their testimony at least twice. Mick was a rock star with his testimony, so he probably did a few more than others. And that's Emma translating. So we shared testimonies. We did ministry things. There's Ernie. He's not asleep this time, bless him, sharing his testimony. This was a soccer team that we went and did some ministry with. We had a game with. That was a bit of fun. My absolute highlight, and you will appreciate this, those of you who know people like Stacy and Ernie and, lesser Mick, but we like to banter a bit, right? I like to banter. And so they're always arguing with me and they're always teasing me. When I was introduced as the pastor, every single one of these young adult men, they're not even Christians. They're not even in the church. Their mouths dropped in shock. And it wasn't because of the tattoos. It was because, as one of them said, and it was translated, and this is the quote for me, I can't believe they dishonor the pastor so much by arguing with them. I was like, yeah, we should pray for them, shouldn't we? These bunch of heathens don't honor their pastor. How dare them? So that was a delight. We played with them. I think Stacy got confused with using her hands versus her feet, but that's another story. I can pick on you. You'll get a shot in a sec. So we did things like that, sporting teams, local villages, unpacking like semi-trailers worth of donations and stuff that we then helped them get into storage. So we did a wide range of things. This is Bianca cooking the most custard she's ever cooked in her life for like 70 people with ingredients. Like you go thinking you can get ingredients in their supermarket. Oh, no, we don't have that. Oh, no, we don't have that. So there was also a lot of improvising. I don't know why she was smiling, because most of that day people were not smiling. That was quite stressful knowing that 70 plus people were coming for dinner and we were cooking it. So we did lots of things like that. We did practical work. Even the kiddies got involved. We made a sand pit for them. This is a youth rally that we ran at the church in Chinusha. And this is me in a suit, unfortunately. That was a low point, but it's culturally acceptable over there. And we ran some trivia in different parts. That was part of the youth rally. And this was the sand pit that we built, because prior it was kind of just like more rocks and dirt than sand. And like the slide was just sitting there, it turns out. It wasn't concreted in. So we were able to do some practical stuff like that. We also did a whole bunch of cleaning and maintenance in their property itself. Stace was pretty proud when 3 of the Moldovan men couldn't get the whippersnipper working. And she was like, it's all right. It's all right. I have a business called Mop and Mow, mate. Step aside. And she got it going, and she just destroyed that backyard with her outdoor skills. So did a bunch of that. We also did, this is one of the houses that, praise the Lord, I was on kid duty. I did not go and clean this house because apparently there was lots of filth, and that's a gentle word, stale urine, lots of, all sorts of things. And this was cleaned out to help the person who was moving into it. And so, lots of practical work as well, house visits, ministry stuff. What else? Well, it was one other thing that we got to do. We got a little bit of free time. It wasn't much. We played table tennis. Now, this was also hard. I don't know if you can see, that's Ernie and that's me. And if you know, over the last 3.5 years, Ernie has talked a very big game about how he would easily beat me if we played table tennis. Should we play the video? No, we won't. I'll save him, because one of the things that poor Bianca and Stacy, I'm still counseling them over, is actually Ernie is a very different man when he starts to get competitive. And I tell you, he scared any unclean spirit that may have been in that building away, because there was so much yelling and rah that poor Stacy and Bianca didn't know what to do except go to bed early. So I will save you, but let's just say I didn't lose. So he also had a lot of fairy floss. I don't know how that one got in there, actually, honest. So what I wanted to do is get the team up. That just gives you a very brief overview. Come on. Jump up. So we're going to do shortest to tallest, because we've got varying seat heights. So Stace, if you want to come down one of these, Ernie and Bianca, jump on one of these. Yeah, Mick, you can sit somewhere there. All right, so I'm going to ask him a couple of questions. We'll see where this goes. And I also thought we might do a bit of Q&A. You might be interested to ask a question or two. Dal, jump up on this. Oh, mate. Oh, jump up there. Oh. All right, so I'm going to start with the first question. We'll start light. We'll start easy. highlight. Share a highlight. Kick off with you, Bianca.
Oh, anyone else have a highlight they want to kick off with? No, you go. The highlight for me was probably having a community with the sort of same heart that we had. And they were just so welcoming, and they just took us under their wing, and particularly me for my children. They just scooped them up and, treated them like they were their own.
The kids. I really enjoyed the kids. I had a fun time with them. Even had a couple of little followers. But, I really enjoyed the kids. That was such a highlight and brought out the youth in me. So, yeah. It killed me trying to run around with them, but I enjoyed the kids very much.
Relationships, building relationships with children, adults, people. At first was a challenge and turned out to be a real highlight for me.
Well, they've said it all. The highlight for me was the children. The first, when we arrived at Senusha, they had a children's program that they were running with the US team. And when all the kids went into the church, and we counted them, there were about 90 kids in the church, all jam-packed. And they engaged in worship and engaged in prayer. So every time they prayed, they stood up, closed their eyes, and with their hands together like that, they were praying. And that spoke to me a lot. And that was right throughout the children's programs that we ran as well. So that was touching, and the kids were really open to what we shared.
What about you, Zach? What was a highlight?
One of my highlights was kids programs, running them.
Awesome, good boy. All right, what about a challenge? What about you, Ernie? Kick off. You complained about going last, you can go first. What was the challenge?
I didn't complain at all. The challenge, well, initially when we got to Kodru, that's where we were staying at the OM camp, we were wondering where we were going to live, and we were talking about it, and where we were going to live, and we were going to be separated, and all those negative thoughts came to our mind. And so the challenge was, what we were going to do, what we were there for, and how we were going to be involved. But it worked out well. Thank God for that.
This is my first present around Moldovan teams, where the tuition pay, the tosses, where all the people is, where fairy forces.
Oh, okay, well done. A challenge for me was, I think we all know when we say around lunchtime, we can, it's around, 11:30, 12, 1, but there it was like 2, 3, 4 o'clock. It was, that was challenging planning for our children, given the fact that we weren't in control of any of the food.
It was a challenge for me just to be in a group. I generally, outside of work, live rather solitary. And so just being in a group and all the dynamics that go with that was a challenge. Saying my testimony was at times in certain situations, particularly on the soccer field. When we were playing soccer, there was some drunks up on a hill, and I had this thought that I'd probably be loudspeaker and preaching to this crowd around, and I thought, oh no, what am I going to say? But it ended up being just a group on the ground, and it was a lot easier. But just sometimes stepping up to the plate and getting out of my comfort zone. And because sometimes I wanted to default and go back to just sitting on the sidelines, which I like sitting up the back. But see, this is a challenge, even just sitting here, being out the front here. So that was my biggest challenge.
The sharing testimony for the first time at the soccer field was probably the most terrifying moment I had. Not only was it the first time I shared my testimony and not had anything written with me, but it was a team that we'd all just pretty much roughed each other around on the soccer field. And I made the mistake of hitting the ball with my hand once, Matt. Anyway, so that was definitely a little bit terrifying, and there was stuff going on in the background, wasn't there? And we weren't sure of what angle. But yeah, it was challenging to go there. We had no expectations. We had no idea what we were walking into, where we'd be sleeping, who we'd be with, whether we'd be together, whether we'd be apart. So the fact that we did get to stay together in the end of the day was very comforting for the whole lot of us. And language barrier was I think a huge issue for all of us, even though we had a translator. We had to build our rapport and establish our relationships through our body actions, through our facial expressions. That when we didn't have the translator around, because she was busy helping everybody in large groups, we had to work out a way, and I think we all did it in the end. I think we all started to understand that you can only do what you can do. But yeah, it was very challenging.
What did you learn? I learned that I thought there would be no one in this planet louder than me and Stacey put together. Turns out Mick is louder than both of us. You would never know that. That's what I learned. But what did you guys learn on a more serious note? What did you learn? And I'll pass it to you, Stace, to start with, just so Mick doesn't rib me. What did you learn? What's something that you learned?
I learnt a lot. In myself, I learnt that I'm stronger than I thought. I'm more resilient than I thought. And it's amazing where patience can kick in, where you think you don't have any left. No, God answered a lot of prayers there too. I think that He provided me with all the things that I found challenging, and I learnt a lot about myself, and I learnt about the people that, even though they look hard, they look like they don't want you around sometimes at first, but I learnt that if you push through people's hardness and coldness, that you can reach out to you can get to the other side with a little bit of love, a little bit of respect, and care. So there was a lot to learn in myself. There was a lot to learn in other people, and there was a lot to learn about the culture and the country, their homes, their lifestyle, their culture. Also very different here. So. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Stace. I'm just deciding I'm going to go backward and forwards when I feel like it. As someone, when I rang you and asked you, would you consider coming on the trip? I don't know if this is oversharing, but one of the first things that you said to me is, why would the church want to support me? I don't deserve it. I'm not a good enough Christian. And it's fair to say that you've...
Oversharing, Matt.
Oh, sorry. We're in a safe place. It's fair to say that, you've been in a rough patch, and that was one of the things that you thought disqualified you from the trip, that you hadn't got your crap together. What did you learn about how God accepts us and what He can do with us, even when we're not perfect, so to speak?
Yeah, look, I'm probably the least perfect example in this church that I can think of. And it didn't really seem to matter. It's, in fact, I think that God had showed me more of what where I'm good in, what I think I'm weak at. He was able to use me in a way that I could help others other than myself. I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that, except that I don't necessarily feel the same way, because I know that I can achieve good even when I don't think I've necessarily been good.
Well, you just answered the question. Amen. All right, Mick, what'd you learn? What'd you learn from the trip?
You can't always walk the Christian life by sight. You have to step out in faith and go beyond your comfort zone. And this trip took me beyond my comfort zones. And I don't know what the future is, but I will take the challenge whenever I get it, and live a little bit more by faith rather than play the safe game and sitting up the back with my arms folded.
Yeah, that's awesome. Amen. What about you, honey? What did you learn?
I think I was very touched by the host family who gave up their house for us, knowing very well that we were from a very wealthy country, but they had to suck their pride in, and they had to be vulnerable in order for us to be blessed. So I've learnt, even when I don't feel like I'm giving gold to somebody, I need to suck in my pride and be vulnerable, because that's how blessing comes to others.
What about you, Ernie?
I learned a lot about Stacey and Mick, and that was a good thing. I learned about the generosity of the pastors from both churches. I learned going on this trip, I stepped out in faith. Going on this trip, and whatever came out my way, I believe that without God, really, I really couldn't really do what I did. So I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about Matt, Pastor Matt.
Thank you for the respect.
Yeah, and about the whole team, and it was rewarding for the 2 weeks. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Ernie. As the eldest person on our trip, no, don't laugh. He is. I'm not poking fun, but he's the eldest person on our trip. And you might laugh at this. This is not me saying this. One of the staff members candidly and maybe too honestly shared in a bit of an evaluation that when they saw all the ages on our team, all 40 plus, and particularly saw Mick and Ernie's, they said that they were quite worried because it was very kid-oriented and very practical, and in their culture, older people don't do a lot. In fact, pastors actually don't have to do a lot. I could get used to that. So Ernie, I'm interested, as the eldest person, well into your 70s, just into your 70s, I know that there are questions maybe in other people's minds, like what use would I do? Like what, this ship has sailed. What did you learn about God being able to use you and change you and bless people through you, even later in your years on missions?
I think God equipped me for this trip. For my age, I'm fit, and getting involved with kids is what I do, even here at church and at youth. No matter how old I am, I'm running after them, playing football, kicking the ball around, just being active. And I think age did not come into it.
Amen.
Ash, when we met Ash, I think Ash came and spoke at the church here about Moldova. And he asked me,
So hang on. I'll just jump in. So Ash came and spoke about Moldova, if you remember him. He actually sent me an email while we were away saying, I'm in Ukraine and I'm coming to Chisinau, can we meet up? And so we actually met up with Ash. This is what Ernie is referencing.
Yeah, and Ash asked me, so, hey, how are you handling it? How are you going with the kids and all that? And I said, good. The kids, they embraced us and we had a good time. And then he said to me, well, they probably looked at you as a fatherly figure.
Or grandfather.
Our grandfather, yeah, that's what he said. And I didn't even think about it because I was there and I did what everyone else did, running around. And so I didn't think that I was a grandfather or a father figure. Because I was fairly active in everything that I did while I was there. So when I look back on it, yeah, maybe the kids did think that because in their homes, their fathers are not there all the time. They're at work overseas, and the kids don't get to see their parents or their father anyway, only their mom. Yeah, anyway, so yeah. That was good. That was a challenge anyway.
All right, Mick, you can kick us off. Next question. How have you changed? How's God changed you? We're going deep now.
How's it changed me? It's more just stepping up to the plate when the plate's offered to you. It's more, again, like I said, you just can't play the safe ball and just sit in your comfort zone. You really can achieve a lot more in Christ if you step out of your comfort zone, and God can really use you, and you can have an impact upon those around you. But it also helps you grow within, and that's what I find. And so, it's pushed me up to the threshold now. So the future is whatever it'll be, but I'll seize the day whenever I can. Awesome. I think that's the biggest thing for me that came out of all of that. Seize the moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about you, Stace? How have you been changed? One or two things.
Look, I'm not sure how I've been changed. I just know.
Or how's your heart been impacted is another way.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. Definitely. Just the people that we met and the situations we found that they were in. There was Svetlana was one lady who we met who had a car accident 11 years ago and couldn't use her legs. Her youngest, she had two sons. Her oldest son had left overseas to study or get married. Married, yeah. And the youngest son was soon to go to Romania to study. And generally the children, when they leave the home, it's very likely they don't come back to the country.
And the husband was working in Russia for 9 months of the year as well.
So, and the grandmother was also living there. So the youngest son was sort of taking care of the mother who couldn't walk and the grandmother, and he was soon to go to uni and most likely not return back to Moldova. There's nothing really for the children to return back to. So that was heartbreaking to think that could be the last moment in your life that your children could be around. And so that really changed my heart to look differently and see differently into just life for a typical family in Moldova and the challenges of food and, the water from the well, that we were drinking water from the well and that how hard it is. to actually wind up all that cable. I don't know how deep it was, but there was...
53 metres.
Yeah, you know, after a while, this is some steel cable with a heavy bucket that you're constantly having to lift. So, yeah, it was just, a lot. There was a lot to take in. Couldn't even try to explain.
What about you, Bianca? How were you changed?
A bit of a realisation for me. I've got a pretty busy schedule and, I'm busy trying to play Tetris with my life, making sure everything fits in. We have a lot of responsibilities in different areas, but it was amazing to see the pastoral team, everyone really that we worked with, their whole life revolved around missions and their heart for people. They worked to do mission, whereas, I'm just everything is kind of on equal playing fields. But for them, their life is to love, to commune, and that was just beautiful. And I want to live for, love and life and community, just like they did.
How were you changed, Ernie? What's changed in your heart? What's impacted your heart?
I think the most important thing was the love for the children. Listening. Sometimes with children you can, no worries, we'll talk later type of thing. But with listening to the children, listening to the home visits where we visited the families, and it took me back to when I was a kid in Sri Lanka, where the kids were playing on the streets, and that's what we did. It brought me back to when I was a kid and how we struggled as a family, and so it changed me. I don't take things for granted. It spoke to me a lot, especially with the kids playing on the street and the parents sitting out the front of the garden gate and watching the kids. I think that's basically what changed me. Just a heart for the needy. Yeah.
Poor Ernie nearly had a cardiac arrest in the city itself when he saw all the gardens, and they were not even, I won't say maintained, they were neglected with a capital N-E-G, and you can spell the rest. And he's just like, each garden, I can't believe, how could you, what, another one? It's like, it's all right, Ernie. But thankfully, when you got to the villages, they needed their gardens for food, and so they were better maintained, and his blood pressure came down, and it was all right. So we've got a couple of minutes. I just thought, are there any questions? Do you have any questions for the team that you can sing out? Just put your hand up. I'll bring the mic over, and feel free. Someone can answer it, or you can direct it to a particular person.
I just want to say well done, first of all. Congratulations. Like, stepping out in faith, it's so inspiring. But we've heard a little bit about the challenges in the villages, what they didn't have. I'd love to hear what the biggest blessings that the villagers had that you saw or you got to participate in.
To me, they were open. They were open to us being there. They were open to us praying with them. It's not that they walked away and did not want to be prayed for. The children were open to what we have to share with them, and that spoke volumes to me as well.
I don't think we realise as Westerners how much power and influence we have over these people. They for some reason, think that we are living in the promised land, and so they just are so attentive to everything that we say, everything that we do. They were asking for Matt's autograph, these young people.
Oh, but that part we understand.
And so all these little children just clinging off us, and many of these children, as the Moldovan adults were saying, they remember these moments sometimes for the rest of their lives, because for many of them it is the only life and truth that is spoken into their lives. I think that's such a blessing to be a part of. And I think the other thing that was such a blessing to be a part of was that often, you see the ads of sad children needing money and things like that, and you give money, but that's sort of all it's been, for me anyway. And to actually see the work, all the hard work that is involved, like unloading those semi-trailers of furniture, it's sweat, it's tears, it's sunburn, it's hunger, it is so much. So yeah, I'm really appreciative for the people that are on the ground.
And I would just say that too, the blessing, we often think of them as poor, and they are monetarily poor compared to us. I give you an idea. I don't really know who, but the church, Ernie said that the church had sent $500 or something to bless. Anyway, we had some, I'll get the details later. We had a bit of money to bless them, and we blessed actually the OM Moldova leaders each. Because they're missionaries. They're what we would call missionaries. They have to raise their own support. And an average decent salary in Moldova is between 400 and 500 euros, which is about $750 a month. A month. And so, they are poor, but I tell you the blessing is this: they're rich. They're rich. And I tell you, we have money and we get there and we see how bankrupt we are, how bankrupt our heart is, how bankrupt our soul is, how little joy we have compared to these people who have barely anything to rub together, but have joy because they have life and they have love and they have Jesus and they have community. And so that was a blessing. You hear it all the time. I preach it all the time, but to see it, it's true. Life is found in Jesus and relation and love. It's not found in stuff. And so that was a blessing to see that, Any other questions? And maybe just one of you kind of jump in if you want, rather than all four answer the questions. Any other questions? Okay.
I don't know.
Go.
I'm pretty loud.
No, go.
I just want to say that one thing that I learnt that they tend to say a lot is, especially with Ernie and Mick, and when we would house visit and they would say, we'd say our name, where we're from, and we would also share, if we had children or grandchildren, which these two have grandchildren. So they would often say, you are rich, and at first I didn't know what they meant by that, but their terminology is that the more children you have and the more family you have around you is the richer you are. So they don't use that word in terms of money, they use that word in terms of family, which was really just a moment where I was like, well, how's that? Because I don't think I've ever thought of that in that way, and it has changed the mindset a little bit, and to see that these people without money and giving food packages, that as long as they're surrounded with the love and respect of their family, then they are rich.
Other questions? Any other questions? Yep, one over here, Jocelyn.
I was just asking what the food was, what sort of food you ate.
Someone jump in. What the food? What was the food like? What kind of food did we eat?
They seem to have soup a lot.
Not much meat, I'll just tell you.
Not a lot of meat. But
I wasn't bitter about that.
And it's hard to get your head around. It's really hot, and then you're having hot soup. Yeah. And the bread wasn't as fresh as what we would be accustomed to.
You could build houses with that bread. I'm not even kidding. That stuff
If
was
went to
hard.
fold the bread, it'd just break. It wouldn't just fold. It'd just so you couldn't have a sausage, sanger because the sausage would fall out.
So lots of polenta, and then lots of just potatoes and stuff that's grown in the ground. So one of the things that they grow a lot of is tomatoes and cucumber. So praise the Lord, you would at least have fresh cucumber and tomato pretty much every meal. A bit of that, and a lot of polenta, a lot of cheap stuff, right? Not stuff that cost a lot of money.
And salami and cheese for breakfast, which is.
But that wasn't so much though the typical person. That's what the OM Moldova thought they would bless us with, that we wanted for breakfast. They didn't realise we don't eat a lot of cheese and salami for breakfast. So after they bought 14 kilos of salami, I'm not even kidding, and cheese, and most of it sat in the fridge, we decided to start being a bit more adventurous with what we did with that cheese and salami. Any other questions? Yeah.
What was the a lot of kids there walking around with mobile phones, and we're all connected to the internet. What was the whole connection thing there like? Was it have a network there, Wi-Fi networks, or?
That's a great question. Actually, the internet wasn't too bad in different places, it's really the lifeblood for them in terms of when they're so separate and they don't have access to doctors and stuff. Not that I recommend this at all, but if you have nothing else, Dr. Google can come in and help, and so they're able to search stuff. And so, to my surprise, there actually was a fair bit of internet connectivity, even in some of the remote villages. So that's a good question.
But the thing is, they weren't corrupted by the technology, because you can rock up to a town and these kids come from everywhere. And I was thinking, if you did that here, they'd be sitting at home on their computers. But they were willing. They just came in droves. They weren't corrupted by.
Yeah, it's a really good point. They really weren't. It was just a non-factor. They had it, but they really didn't use it that much. You're right. But particularly the teens and kids, they didn't use it a lot. I'll ask a question on their behalf, because I'm sure this is one of the things that people wanted to know. Did you feel safe?
Oh, so safe, honestly.
Did you feel safe?
Sure did.
Did you feel safe?
Oh, yeah, but I did.
Did you feel safe? Yes, and yes. All right? Turns out you can be, 200 kilometres from a war, and it was incredibly safe. The whole time there wasn't a single moment that any of them felt unsafe. So just putting that in your mind. That had nothing to do with war. That had to do with shenanigans. Anyway, other questions, quick. Yeah.
Given that you all learnt how to connect and reach community over there, how did you form community amongst yourselves? Because none of you really knew each other well when you went over, and how did that impact you?
Good question. Someone.
Well, the typical Australia way is you just bag each other out, really.
But you shouldn't bag the pastor.
Maybe not, but we did. I didn't know these people at all, really. I've only been here a short time, so it was interesting to get to know the team, and Stacey was quite a standout for me.
She was, for all of us.
And very inspiring.
In answer to your question, I got to know Stacey. We would sing on the bus, in the van. We would crack jokes, and I learned more about her in the last 2 weeks than I ever know since she's been coming to church. Whenever she walks through that door, she goes, and then she comes and sits down. Not anymore. She was the life of the team. Kept us, we were having fun. Everywhere we went, we had fun.
It's true.
When we went for walks, we had fun. Stacey would, with her camera, all over the place taking photos. we were going for a walk, and Stace is right behind us, about maybe another 200 yards behind us, taking photos and all that type of thing. So I've got to know Stace and Mick, and I think that builds a more friendship now.
Yeah.
And and what to expect. The other thing too is I was quite touched by the US team of missionaries. They were all in their teens, and they spoke English, Russian, and Romanian, and they've been going there for the last 3 years doing mission work. And us, at our age, obviously, some of the home team thing we could handle, manage, with the kids and all that. But we showed them. But the U.S. team, young folks, young adults there, they did really well as far as the youth were concerned for their age, and they shared quite a bit as well. So that was good.
All right, what about you, hun? You were going to jump in, say something quickly.
So how we sort of bonded. With the Moldovan team, we had to do devotions each day. But then on top of that, Matt made us wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning.
I invited you into the privilege.
6 a.m. in the morning to have a devotional together. So we read through most of Corinthians and some of Psalm. And I think that really, it sort of just gave me an insight into your hearts and, And that was amazing, I think, for forming our relationships.
All right, who else has a question? Zach just wants to quickly say we did have a lot of fun. We should flag that. It really was fun. And what was one of the fun things for you?
One of the fun things for me was swimming next to the Ukraine.
Yes, we swam in a river, and if you crossed half of the river, you were now in Ukraine. So we were told don't cross that half because men with guns might point at us. No, not just kidding. All right, quick question up here. One or two more.
If you were to go again, what would be the one thing that you'd take with you? And we know Matt would take a coffee machine.
I wouldn't. I didn't drink coffee for almost 6 weeks.
God willing, I would like to go again next year. And just remember what we have done this time and prepare ourselves better for next time.
Great. Yeah, it's such a blessing that all of these guys, one of the things that stood out to me is they're all like, oh, when are the dates for next year? I want to go, I want to go, I want to go. So that speaks volumes. Quick, one more, 2 questions. Yeah, if you like air conditioning, think again, you'd bring a fan. Good work. Questions, any more questions? And then we're going to have soup. Here we are, yeah.
Season-wise, what's the kind of season?
It was summer and it was hot. Yeah, so it got down to 25 degrees was the low. 22, 23, 24, 33, 34, 35 during the day. Any other questions? Waiting done. Yep, go, Amelia.
Was it pumpkin soup?
Was it pumpkin soup? We didn't have any pumpkin soup, did we? We had a Russian soup called borscht, and then we had some Moldovan soup, which was kind of like chicken noodle soup with extra veggies and potato. It's the simplest way to put it. Any other questions for the team? All right, well, they've got a lot more to tell you. So can I encourage you over the weeks and months, come alongside, ask them. It was a life-changing experience. Like I said, for me, what a blessing that, that all of them, and myself included, are kind of eager to get back. So start thinking for yourself. I was thinking on the plane, you know what? It really solidified to me that missions has to be a part of a church's diet. Like overseas missions, an opportunity to go overseas is so important. And so I would say this to you, in the next 5 to 7 years, if you're able, and obviously you put yourself into the category, I would start planning. When are you going in the next 5 to 7 years think about when are you going, because it will change your life. And if you don't believe me, ask any one of these, because it has changed their life. And God's done great things both in them and through them. And so I put the challenge to you. Start thinking, this is a long-term partnership for us. We will go every year. And so when is your year going to be? When is your year going to be? Well, we're going to wrap it up there. Why don't you just give the team a round of applause?